I recently covered the case of Alexis Pickett, but you might have missed it. So I'm going to quickly recap the case for you before we look at the brand new criminal complaint filed in this case. Why was there a new criminal complaint? Well, there was an 8-page one filed by the state, and the judge actually said that it did not meet sufficient probable cause standards to continue with the case, and he dismissed the charges against the Wisconsin professor accused of murdering his pregnant mistress, who is Alexis Pickett. So that sounded scary. Like, is he going to get away with it? No, he is innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. It's just based on that criminal complaint, one can kind of see why the state is accusing him of committing this crime. There's a lot that they had in there, but now they have even more. But the case does not come without its challenges. I think the defense has a lot to work with, and I think if we ever get to see this trial, if it's televised and things like that, it's got to be very, very interesting. It's a bit of an uphill battle for the state, even with all the new information, which is 14 pages of new information. So let's quickly recap what happened, who's who, and then we're going to read that new document. Please note that this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share. So Alexis Pickett, only 27 years old. She was born February 5th of 1998 in Tomah, Wisconsin. She lived in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and she was the mother of a 2-year-old boy and was 3 to 4 months pregnant at the time of her death. She was excited about the pregnancy and had a gender reveal party. Friends and family describe her as someone energetic, generous, and known to make others feel valued and supported. She loves animals. She had 1 dog and 1 cat, and she also loved fashion. Now, trigger warning, this content is of course for educational purposes and for adults only, and this involves not only the alleged murder of Alexis Pickett, a pregnant lady, but also her dog died as well, okay? Just to give you a heads up. So, Matthew Sierra, 38, a Wisconsin college professor, had an affair with Alexis for several years. He is the father of her 2-year-old child. He was a mechanical design instructor at Western Technical College in La Crosse, Wisconsin. She recently got pregnant again, which infuriated him. He wanted her to terminate the pregnancy and threatened to take custody of the 2-year-old if she didn't. She went ahead with a gender reveal party, and she was pregnant with a boy. Matthew was not invited to the party. So she was very strong-willed, and she didn't want to terminate the pregnancy. She was so excited, to have this baby boy, and she didn't need him to be there, even though she wanted him to be part of their children's lives, because this would be the second child now that he would be having with his mistress. I think he has a child with his wife as well. November 13th of 2025, Alexis was discovered deceased in the second floor southeast bedroom of her apartment following a fire reported at approximately 3:31 a.m.
According to the La Crosse Fire Department, this happened around 3:30 a.m. on the 1700 block of Taylor Street. Firefighters fought heavy smoke and fire inside the home, and when crews searched the residence, they found 1 person deceased. That incident is still under investigation.
Her dog was also found deceased in the home. The 2-year-old was with a friend that night, and man, when I first heard about this case, and I was just like reading, what happened and who, and wait, where was the 2-year-old? Okay, because that could have also included the 2-year-old being in the house, right? Shame, and the dog was found deceased in the bathroom. Surveillance footage and phone records suggest that Matthew Sierra was the last person at the scene before the fire. December 16th of 2025, he turned himself in when police notified him that he would be arrested. And he was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, arson, and mistreatment of animals. Now, as I said, there were some major case challenges. The preliminary autopsy findings conducted by Dr. Michelle Strom at the Southeast Minnesota Regional Medical Examiner's Office indicated that Alexis died prior to the fire. There was no soot in her mouth, throat, and lungs, and she had very low carbon monoxide levels in her blood. Toxicology results confirmed that she had no illicit substances in her system, which means it's very difficult for the state to prove that she was murdered. And also based on the state in which her body was found, which we're going to get into more details of that today. On December 23rd of 2025, the judge dismissed the original charges and gave the state 72 hours to file a criminal complaint to provide sufficient probable cause against Matthew Sierra. A hearing was scheduled for December 26th, and at that time we're wondering, will he get away with it? I actually went live on December 26th. It was that day. And during that live stream, we found out, okay, the judge decided that there was sufficient probable cause and that the case will continue ahead, right?
The court found probable cause in relation to the house fire in North La Crosse that killed a pregnant woman and her unborn child back in November. The charges include 2 counts of first-degree homicide, arson, and mistreatment of an animal resulting in death. He faces a $1 million cash bond with conditions, no contact with his child he has with the victim, and JSS bail monitoring with weekly check-ins. A preliminary hearing is set for January 5th of next year.
But we didn't yet have a copy of the document, and we now do. So yeah, that's going to be a 22-page detailed read. You thought the first one was detailed, this one's more detailed. So prosecutors told Judge Horn in a preliminary hearing that the fire investigator's report and final autopsy report have not been completed. So it was like the time pressure to say, okay, those reports have not been completed, but the judge gave them 72 hours to refile a new criminal complaint. Imagine if they just dismissed the charges, which would be without prejudice, and just let him, meaning they could refile at any time, but they would just let him walk out of there. That sounds to me like it could be a flight risk, right? Thankfully, that did not happen. He's been in jail ever since he was arrested. Anyway, but they believe that Sierra's location and relationship to Pickett were enough evidence to arrest and hold him. Without these 2 reports, prosecutors could not identify where the fire began, what caused the fire, and the state of Pickett's body at the time of her and the unborn child's death. Now, the thing is that we hear a little bit more about the state of her body, but they still don't seem to know exactly where the fire began based on the extensive damage, except for saying that it seems to have started in her room. Okay, so the defense attorney actually said, I'll be frank, I didn't expect to actually argue this motion. I thought after I filed the motion last week that we would see an amended complaint here today, and I expected to withdraw my motion. The mere fact that the court had to ask those questions about things outside of the complaint as to where the investigation is going answers the question, which is we don't have enough in the complaint. Prosecutors countered that besides Sierra killing Pickett, the only explanation for Pickett's death would be Pickett's coincidental natural death in the 3-minute span between Sierra leaving the apartment and the first smoke alarm activation. The argument was too circumstantial for Judge Horn, who accepted the motion to dismiss the case, and Horn said that prosecutors can amend and refile the complaint by a bond hearing set for Friday if they want the case continued. If prosecutors missed this deadline, Horn said that he would be inclined to release Sierra from custody. Again, thankfully that did not happen. There was sufficient probable cause found in this brand new criminal complaint, and he's still stuck in jail on a $1 million cash bond. He's been placed on administrative leave from the college pending the outcome of legal proceedings, which could be LWOP, life without parole, if convicted. And so he might probably never be a professor again, right? But you never know. This case could go many ways. I think it's a little risky. I think it's an uphill battle for the state, as I said. Now, his wife was aware of the affair in the past, but says that she was unaware of it being ongoing and unaware that Alexis was pregnant again. She told police that she's been in therapy to address relational issues stemming from the affair. The 2-year-old boy was placed in the care of Matthew's mother. Okay, so that is the recap. That's what we have. Now, are you ready to deep dive this brand new criminal complaint with me? I absolutely love documents. I love it when there's also long criminal complaints and probable cause affidavits that give us lots of details to work with, right? To understand, well, what happened here and why did they arrest this guy and what are they accusing him of, right? So thank you so much to Grizzly Cat for obtaining this document for us so that I can read it to you. All right, so criminal complaint, as you could see, let's see, does it say the date? It does. Look, 12/26/2025. Okay, so count 1, first-degree intentional homicide. It says the above-named defendant on or about Thursday, November 13th of 2025 on Taylor Street in the city of La Crosse County, Wisconsin, did cause the death of AP, which is Alexis Pickett, right, the victim, with intent to kill that person or another contrary to all these codes. and it's a Class A felony, and upon conviction shall be sentenced to imprisonment for life. Count 2, first-degree intentional homicide of the unborn child, which is his child too, you know what I mean? Like, if you're capable of killing a woman, a pregnant woman, and your own child, my goodness. Yeah, no LWOP for you then, huh? But of course, he's innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. Do I think he did it? Yeah. But it's up to the jury, right? So the above named defendant on or about Thursday, November 13th at Taylor Street in La Crosse County, Wisconsin, had caused the death of an unborn child with intent to kill that unborn child, or kill the woman who is pregnant with that unborn child, or kill another, is guilty of a Class A felony, and that would also be imprisonment for life. Then arson of the building. The above named defendant on or about Thursday, November 13th of 2025 at Taylor Street in the city of La Crosse in Wisconsin by means of fire did intentionally damage the building of La Crosse Housing Authority without that person's consent, contrary to those codes, a Class C felony, and upon conviction may be fined not more than $100,000 or imprisoned not more than 40 years or both. I just really want to put a picture of Alexis up here as I read this document to you. Shame. Okay. Now, the count 4 is mistreatment of animals, and they say the above named defendant at that address, of course, did intentionally treat an animal, a dog belonging to AP, in a cruel manner, resulting in the animal's death, contrary to all these codes, and it would be a fine not more than $10,000 or imprisoned not more than 3 years and 6 months or both. Okay, let's get to the factual basis. Fire on November 13th of 2025. Now, while there's some information that's obviously repeated compared to the 8-page criminal complaint, you know, they've added so much more in between that, of course, we're going to read all of it, right? We're on page 2 out of 22. So we're going to be a little while. Okay, so on November 13th of 2025 at approximately 3:31 a.m., Officer Zumak arrived on scene to a structural fire at Alexis Pickett's house on Taylor Street in the city of La Crosse. Officer Zumak observed the second floor southeast side of the residence to be on fire, with an open flame emitting through the second floor window, as well as flames starting to consume parts of the roof just outside the window. After speaking with neighbors and learning a mother and son usually stay at the residence, Officer Zumak went up to the residence of this house at Taylor Street and knocked multiple times before attempting to open the front door of the residence. When Officer Zumak turned the door handle to enter the residence, he found it to be unlocked. As he opened the front door, he observed smoke consuming the bottom floor of the residence. At this time, parts of the roof began to fall near the front door of the residence. Due to the heavy smoke and the roof beginning to collapse due to the fire, Officer Zumak backed away from the residence for safety reasons. At that time, La Crosse Fire Department was not yet on scene. Officer Zumak then assisted in evacuating the next door residents of the attached duplex, also at Taylor Street, as the La Crosse Fire Department LCFD arrived. The apartment is owned by the La Crosse Housing Authority. They did not consent to the burning of the apartment. Officer Peterson also responded to the scene and made contact with a neighbor, MF. Obviously all redacted, you know, initials for their safety and protection and privacy and all that. And some words have been redacted, like addresses and things like that in this document as well, just so that you know. If you see like a blank space, it's been redacted to not only abide by privacy laws, but also YouTube's community guidelines. Okay, so Officer Peterson also responded to the scene and made contact with the neighbor MF. MF told Officer Peterson that she was aware a woman with a young son, approximately 2 to 3 years old, lived in the residence that was currently on fire. Officer Peterson asked MF if she was aware of anyone else living there, and MF indicated she has seen an orange SUV at the residence multiple times, but she was unsure of who drove the vehicle or the nature of their relationship to Taylor Street. Sergeant Berg arrived on scene at approximately 3:35 a.m. He was eventually approached by a neighbor, identified as MM. MM said that she was familiar with the female who lives at the incident location and drives the black car parked out in front. It was later learned that the black car was registered to AP, who's the victim in this case. Investigators also learned that AP owned a small breed dog. Investigator Westphal had been informed that once LCFD arrived on scene and extinguished the fire, they located one deceased person in the second-story southeast portion of the residence. This person was later positively identified through dental records as Alexis Pickett, AP, by odontologist Ann L. Norlander and Matt Murfeld. Investigator Brandel learned that a deceased dog was located during a search of the apartment on November 24th. I mean, like, just remember when this happened, huh? November 13th. Shame, the dog was only discovered 11 days later. DCI agents discovered the dog behind or underneath the toilet in the bathroom. Investigator Rodant of the La Crosse Police Department states that he was assigned the fire aspect of the investigation with the LCFD and DCI arson inspectors and the State Fire Marshal Office. The body of the victim, AP, was located in a bedroom on the second level of this Taylor Street home, and the La Crosse County Medical Examiner's Office was notified and requested to respond to the scene for the removal of the body. After the body was removed and turned over to the Medical Examiner's Office, S.A. Gregory Erickson exited the residence with what appeared to be a severely fire-damaged flip smartphone that was located under the body of the victim. During the excavation of the fire scene, S.A. Nathan Reblin advised, so that would be your special agent, right? Nathan Reblin advised that a possible heel or foot bone was located in the room the victim was located and removed from the previous day. That tells you, shame, her body was in a terrible state, right? So he requested that the medical examiner return to the scene and the bone was turned over to the medical examiner, Bailey Mason. Investigator Rodon conducted follow-up and made contact with MM. Officer Rollins had contact with MM on 11/13/2025, and she advised that she would be checking her video cameras at the rear of her residence, which faced southwest, and observed the rear door to Taylor Street. MM said her neighbor, AP, that's the victim in this case, would be outside with her son and play with her dog. AP would leave in the morning every day, implying she possibly had a job. Her neighbor's pattern changed approximately 6 to 7 months ago when a taller, skinny, black male was coming around the house. Her vehicle would be home more and there would be no activity in the house. She saw a few males driving her neighbor's vehicle as well. MM mentioned how the male would stand in the back of the Taylor Street home and smoke. She said he would say hi if MM was outside in her backyard. Sometimes the male and her neighbor would leave together in her car, and sometimes just the male would. MM said that she was aware that her neighbor was pregnant and due in April. MM saw online in the comments section from the WXOW Facebook page that her neighbor was beefing with her baby daddy, and was also told by a neighbor that she was looking to get oxycodone. MM knew that her neighbor is a recovering addict, but knew that she was getting clean and had always been polite and quiet. MM said that a female friend would also come around and hang out with her, who she assumed was her sister or friend. MM said she wants to help as much as she can, and said that she's been hearing the cause of the fire was electrical because the neighbor at redacted Taylor Street, that is on the west side of the duplex to Taylor Street, made comments on the same WXOW Facebook page that they have had electrical issues in the apartment as well. See, the defense is going to work with that. Like, oh, so these apartments had some electrical issues in the past, so that could have started the fire. So they already, out the door goes the arson charge, you know what I mean? Based on what the defense theory would be. So we'll have to see what the jury decides on that, especially with the timing. When you consider all the timing and all the other circumstantial evidence that they'll bring to the table, I'm sure, right? This is just the criminal complaint, which is, of course, not the whole story, but usually these are quite comprehensive as well. So here we go. MM went on to say how she has lived in a unit, though, for 10 years, right? And has never had any issues, and she hasn't heard of any complaints from other neighbors. Okay, so she's definitely going to be testifying. MM said that she didn't think that her neighbor would have fallen asleep with a cigarette, and she was asked if her neighbor smoked, and she said she never saw her smoke. She also didn't think it was self-harm. said that she could usually get a good idea of people who would come through the units, and she would pick up on their behaviors and personalities. She could tell which people either don't care or would try and make things better and keep to themselves and keep their place looking nice. She saw her neighbor from redacted Taylor Street as someone who was trying. She was with her kid and she was active. Was asked the last time she saw her neighbor, and she said she remembered hearing her lock her vehicle over this past weekend. She knew it was her neighbor locking the vehicle because she had heard the horn active about 5 times from locking it. She said her neighbor had done that since her vehicle was broken into. Said that she didn't see her neighbor much even since she moved in. She would see her mow her yard or take the garbage out from time to time. She never had parties, loud music or noise. Was asked if she had seen any males other than the one she mentioned earlier at her neighbor's residence, and she shook her head no. Officer Lang was also approached by a female named C.E. who previously lived at Taylor Street that told him that there have been electrical issues there. So she going to testify as well. Nick Schumann with the La Crosse Housing Authority was sent a link to upload the documentation of maintenance requests and annual inspections completed by the Housing Authority. Investigator Redant reviewed the forms, and there didn't appear to be anything wrong with the electrical components, and everything had passed inspections. The electrical inspections typically consist of staff using an electricity reader to show there is current and document when the lights and other items are working when turned on, per Nick. The inspection that was completed when CE moved out showed that all electrical areas were marked pass. There were multiple fails on the form that Nick said could have been related to holes, stains, and damage. He said it would be anything more extensive than normal wear and tear. Anything that would have been marked as fail when CE moved out would have been corrected prior to AP moving in. The Housing Authority maintenance employees would fix these issues unless if something more extensive, such as electrical issues where a permit would be needed. The Housing Authority will then hire that out. There was a note on the maintenance report from 9/18/25 stating GFI, where washing machine would be. Nick stated the Housing Authority is replacing all the outlets near the washing machines with GFI outlets, as it is a new requirement by the Housing Urban Development, HUD. On 11/18/2025, at approximately 5:34 p.m., remember this will happen November 13th of 2025, so now 5 days later, investigator, I don't know if you guys would say it like Redant. It just looks like it would be Redant. You might say Radant. So remember, I'm South African, so just here and there my accent might be a little different, okay? And I want to say Redant. I guess at the trial will be investigator Radant. Let's go on. Made contact with LCFT firefighter Cole Wiggert, verbally identified, who advised he moved the mattress spring and saw the AP lying on the ground on her back. Shame. I asked firefighter Wiggert to explain what he saw and when entering AP's bedroom. The door to the bedroom was on the north wall of AP's bedroom. Therefore, when entering the room, the firefighters would have been facing south. Firefighter Wiggert said the drywall was already off the ceiling when they entered the room. He noticed what looked like 2 dressers, one on the north wall and the other appeared to be on the east wall. Firefighter Wiggert said that the room was still very hot and he had to have Lieutenant Kramer cool the debris with water as they were trying to move it. He pulled apart what was left of the dresser on the east wall and only saw embers. Firefighter Wiggert said that he wasn't really making a dent with the debris and how hot it was, so he tried to lift the mattress spring up that had all the debris on top of it, which he said had a lot of the debris that was insulation and drywall from the ceiling. He said he couldn't see a victim lying on the mattress spring prior to moving it. He described the head of the bed or mattress spring to be against the north wall in the room and clarified that the mattress would have ran north and south. He was standing on the southwest corner of the mattress spring and grabbed that corner and lifted up as he was shaking the debris off. Firefighter Wiggert said that he and Lieutenant John Ganazzi saw the victim at the same time, and Lieutenant Ganazzi got on the radio to let the other firefighters know that there was a victim located. Firefighter Wiggert said when they saw the victim lying on her back, he could only observe her face and left hand. The rest of the body was covered in insulation and debris. Investigator Redant asked firefighter Wiggert if anyone had moved the body, and he said not to his knowledge. He admitted to possibly touching the body when he was trying to remove the insulation and debris from the top and sides of the body. The insulation and debris were being removed due to not knowing if the missing child was next to the victim in the bed, being in the pile of debris. Once the debris was removed, the victim was fully exposed and a second victim was not located. Firefighter Wiggert was shown the photo of AP lying on her back with her front exposed and asked if she was in the same position when the debris was removed, and he said he believed so. Investigator Rodin spoke with LCFD Lieutenant John Ganazzi, verbally identified, after speaking with firefighter Wiggert on the same date at approximately 7:54 p.m. I asked Lieutenant Ganazzi what he saw and did when he entered the bedroom. I showed him the same photos that I showed firefighter Wiggert. Lieutenant Ganazzi said that Lieutenant Kramer was on the handline and immediately to the left when entering the room from the north wall. Firefighter Wiggert was in between Lieutenant Ganazzi and Lieutenant Kramer for some time, and Lieutenant Ganazzi said that he was moving his way along the west wall. He said that he remembered over half of the drywall from the ceiling being down and some plaster still on the west wall. Lieutenant Ganazzi said he was mostly stationary in the northwest corner of the room. Lieutenant Ganazzi said that they were sifting through the insulation and it had to be cooled down by Lieutenant Kramer on the handline. Lieutenant Ganazzi said as firefighter Wiggert moved the mattress spring, that's when AP was visible. And again, trigger warning because they get pretty graphic with their details, okay? He remembered first seeing AP on her back and her right leg may have been bent up. He remembered seeing intestines exposed to the victim. He also saw some skin that was still intact on AP, which he thought was more on her side, and he couldn't see her back. Lieutenant Ganazzi said they had to go back into the room to try to find the kid. As they were moving debris away from AP, he started to see the skin that was still intact towards her side. Lieutenant Ganazzi said he first noticed AP's bone from her leg and followed it up and saw her torso and abdomen the way that it was on the photo. Lieutenant Ganazzi said when firefighter Wiggert picked up the mattress spring, he was in the center of the room and to the right of Lieutenant Ganazzi and moved the spring away from him to the south. Lieutenant Ganazzi said that he didn't notice any large objects fall off the bed. However, when he first entered the room, he did see debris on the bed, being drywall and insulation, which he described as being thick. Investigator Rodin had conversations with DCI agent Nathan Reblin, and he believes the door to AP's bedroom was closed during the fire, and the door to the bathroom where the dog was found was also closed due to the damage to the doors and how the fire would have burned through the doors. Reblin stated that there was an abundance of smoke and hot gases in the bathroom. Shane, that's where the dog was. The top of the door would have failed first and allowed the gas and smoke to enter and would have continued to go back down within the room. He believes when the barking on the audio or video stops, which they're going to get into detail with, the dog was likely confined to the bathroom. So that also shows that somebody was in there, doing all these things with intent, like closing the bathroom door, closing the bedroom door, and then leaving. And then there's surveillance to show who arrived and who left, and that would be Matthew Sierra, the professor. Okay. So the dog was in the corner of the bathroom between the toilet and the tub when it was found, and obviously couldn't have closed the door itself. Investigator Rodin had conversations with the arson investigators, and they stated that given the extensive damage done to the bedroom, it would be highly unlikely to determine exactly where or how the fire started. See, that's a negative for the state. It would be highly unlikely to determine exactly where or how the fire started, other than it was in AP's bedroom, because that room was the only one heavily damaged by the fire. Identification of deceased. According to the dental identification report authored by odontologist Anne L. Norlander and Matt Murfield, the ante-mortem and post-mortem data match in sufficient detail to establish that they are from the same individual. In addition, there are no irreconcilable discrepancies. This comprehensive comparison provides conclusive evidence for the positive identification of AP in accordance with definitions approved by the American Board of Forensic Odontology. Follow-up regarding AP and relationships. Through the investigation, it was learned that AP shared a 2-year-old child, OM initials, with Matthew Sierra. That child had been staying with AP's friend, LM. Investigator Westphal interviewed LM on November 13th of 2025 at 12:45 p.m. When asked about the relationship between AP and Matt, which would be the victim and the perpetrator, alleged perpetrator, LM said, "All I know is that they've been on and off and they've been constantly fighting because he found out she was pregnant with his kid and he didn't want anything to do with it." She indicated that Matt had wanted AP to terminate the pregnancy, but AP did not want that. Matt had also been threatening to take full custody of the 2-year-old if AP refused to terminate the pregnancy. LM also knew that AP and Matt had gotten a DNA test on the baby that AP was currently pregnant with, and it was confirmed that Matt was the father. LM said that Matt freaked out when he found out that AP was pregnant, as AP had called LM and was crying as she informed LM that she was pregnant again and Matt wanted her to terminate the pregnancy, but she didn't want to do that. On November 14th of 2025, investigator Westphal made contact with AP's friend, SR, regarding her recent contacts with AP. SR said that she would have screenshots of messages between her and AP. SR was provided a link to upload these items and also uploaded a recording of a conversation between Matt Sierra and AP. This conversation was transcribed as follows. So AP is the victim, Alexis Pickett. Matthew is the defendant, Matthew Sierra, the married Wisconsin professor, right? Now, AP says, "I just don't know what kind of human being you are anymore." And he says, "What I will say now is, if this is your decision and you're going to keep the kid, things are going to be very different between you and I." And she says, "I expect that, and that's okay." Matthew, "Okay, I have things I need to do." AP, "Right." Matthew, "And it's not going to be the best thing for everyone, but it is going to be the best thing for people like OM, which is the 2-year-old. It will be the best thing for the 2-year-old. It's going to be the best, ... inaudible. I'm really sorry that you decided to do this." AP, "Well, are you going to sign your rights over to both of them?" Matthew, "I don't think that's an option." AP, "Because if you sign your rights over to this baby, they're not going to look at that as, well, you don't want to keep one baby, but you want to keep the other. So what are you saying? What are you going to do? The only thing that I could think of that would help you in the situation is to sign your rights over. That's the only thing I can think of." Matthew, "Okay, is that an option, the only option?" AP says, "With what?" Matthew, "Do you want me to sign my rights away?" AP says, "For OM?" Matthew, "For whoever. Is that what you want?" AP, "No, of course not. Why? Is that what you want?" Matthew, "No, but what I'm going to say now is I have information and I'm going to use that information. Things are going to be difficult." Okay. AP says, "There's nothing you can do. What are you going to do to take custody of OM? Because then you will have to take custody of this child too." Matthew, "This is your decision. You're the one to make this decision. You'll have to live with these consequences if you decide." AP, "Yeah, I know. You'll have to live with the consequences that you got me pregnant. But I want you to know something. I'm not scared of your empty threats anymore." Then it says, inaudible, Matt and AP talk over each other briefly. AP, "Technically, it'd empty for me because I know for a fact that you're not going to fight for custody. And if you are, there's like a 30% chance that you're going to win. That's not going to bother me anymore like it used to, okay? I need to say it to you, but it really does not because I am the best mother." Matthew, "Listen to me." Repeats 6 times as AP is talking. So it'll be like, "Listen to me, listen 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 to me." Damn, okay, 6 times, wow. AP, "The best mother I have been in a while. I've been taking care of OM for the longest with no help from you other than child support. I think I'm good." Matthew says, "Listen to me, you need to listen to me." Repeats 4 times as AP is talking. Matthew, "Listen to me, you need to hear this." AP continues talking. "Are you going to listen?" AP, "You're threatening to take away custody because I'm not terminating the pregnancy." Matthew, AP, "Listen." AP, "No, answer that." Matthew, "Are you listening to me?" AP, "Are you going to answer my question? Are you threatening to take away custody?" Matthew, "You need to be quiet and listen to me." AP, "I need to." Matthew, "Yes, you do." AP, "What is it, Matt?" Matthew, "I have talked to a lawyer." AP, Matthew, "I have paperwork from that lawyer." AP, "Yeah?" Matthew, "That tells me there's a Wisconsin statute, ... End of recording. video surveillance in the neighborhood, and they've given us a picture in this one compared to the previous criminal complaint. Okay, investigator West Paul also learned that a woman named JB approached a LCPD patrol car at approximately 8 a.m. on November 14th of 2025. JB informed the officer that her mother RB lived in the neighborhood and had video surveillance cameras that captured a male walking out of the front door and getting into a FJ Cruiser. Nice. If you see something, say something. See, they checked their in cams, dash cams, everything, and they're like, we have something. And they reached out to the police. That was the right thing to do. It says he's seen leaving a few moments before the fire started. Camera number 6 view. Investigator West Paul explained the video is positioned in a way to see AP's front door, but not the bedroom window above the door. It also shows the alley heading to the front door. Investigator West Paul watched the video and noted the important times. Now I'm trying to see. Okay, so here is a vehicle. I can't see. Can you see somebody in this picture? Wait. I can just see what it's showing, like the angle, right? So it says 12:44 a.m. The FJ Cruiser observed traveling eastbound on Taylor Street, then parks on the south side of Taylor Street in front of redacted Taylor Street out of camera view. Lights flash on vehicle when being locked. 12:45 a.m. Subject, later identified to be Matthew Serra, walked from the location where the FJ Cruiser was parked, walks up to the front south-facing door of Taylor Street and enters the residence. At 2:46 a.m., so that's like quite a bit of time. It's 2 hours, right, that passed. Subject, later identified to be Matthew Serra, exits the residence using the front south-facing door and walks out of camera view to locate where FJ Cruiser is parked. Double light flashes indicates vehicle unlocked. At 2:48 a.m., FJ Cruiser observed driving northbound through the 2800 block alley. Parks in the alley facing AP's residence in camera view, parks and turns off headlights. It should be noted, the location where the FJ Cruiser is parked in the 2800 block of Hamilton Street West provided a clear view of the south side, including the second floor bedroom window of, AP's residence. At 2:50 a.m., the FJ Cruiser headlights turn on, the vehicle starts and exits alley northbound, turning eastbound onto Taylor Street. Between the time of the subject, suspected to be Matthew Serra, leaving Taylor Street, and first responders arriving on scene, no one else is observed going to or coming from the residence using the front door. Investigator Rosnow further reviewed this video's audio and heard the following. Okay. At 2:32:20 a.m., a dog can be heard barking somewhat aggressively and gets louder. It sounds like a small breed dog based on the bark. 2:32 a.m. or 28 a.m. 2:32:28, they've got the seconds down. The bark changes to more of a bark or yelp. Then at 2:35, the bark or yelp stops. 2:46:30 a.m. An audible smoke alarm can be heard going off. There's a steady 3 beeps that can be heard. Investigator Rosnow heard at least 5 sets of 3 beeps until AP's front door opens. At 2:46:20 a.m., the video shows Matthew walking away from the front of AP's residence. At 2:46:30 a.m., video of Matthew unlocking his vehicle, as one can see 2 visible flashes of light similar to unlocking a vehicle. It says, please note that according to the video or audio times, Matthew is unlocking his vehicle at the same time audio smoke alarms can be heard. 2:48:10 a.m., audio of a vehicle engine shutting off. Audible smoke alarms still heard going off, at least 2 smoke alarms heard. 2:48:10 a.m., video of Matthew pulling over in the alleyway and shutting the vehicle engine off. 2:48:59 a.m., multiple audible smoke alarms can be heard going off repeatedly until Matthew's vehicle leaves. At 2:12 a.m., audible sounds of Matthew's vehicle engine starting. Between 2:51 and 3:01 a.m., audible smoke alarms repeatedly going off consistent with what has been heard. At 3:23 a.m., visual of fire can be seen as it reflects off AP's vehicle. This grows in strength and is clearly visible. At 3:25:04 a.m., audio of what is believed to be a window shattering. After the window shatters, the audible smoke alarm can again be heard. 3:25:39 a.m., audio of a second window shattering. Audible smoke alarms can still be heard. The fire is very large and intense at this point. At 3:31:46 a.m., audio of a male yelling Anyone in there? Audible smoke alarms are clearly heard. 3:30, 3:43 a.m. Audio of first police sirens can be heard in the distance. Between the time of the subject, suspected to be Matthew Sierra, leaving Taylor Street and the first responders arriving on scene, no one else is observed going to or coming from the residence using the front south-facing door. Will the defense say someone went through the back door? Maybe. So we're on page 10 out of 22, by the way. Location of Matt's phone on November 12th and 13th of 2025. At this moment, please do like the video if you haven't liked it yet, especially if you like it when I read you documents, all these criminal complaints, PCAs, things like that, or just because you want more people to see this. You think, you know what? Yes. Let more people see this, YouTube. That's the way to tell YouTube that, right? So thank you so much. All right, investigators Mancuso and Rosenow met with Matt Sierra on November 13th of 2025 and seized his phone. Matt provided the passcode to the phone without issue. In the execution of a search warrant, a forensic extraction was conducted on the phone. Do tell Uncle Google, what did he do? Okay, which investigator Rosenow reviewed and found the following. Information from Matt's phone. Matt has the decedent AP labeled Juvenile 1's mom in his phone. It shows a phone number of redacted. Timeline. 8:51 p.m. AP says to Matt, well, okay, now, I'm just going to read it as it is, okay? I'm going to read it as it is. It's a bit of a spicy sentence from the victim to the defendant. Okay. 8:51 p.m. AP says to Matt, well, I'm head to bed here in about 30 minutes. Got a few things to do in the morning. Feel free to come in at night tonight and slide your cock in me while I'm still sleeping if you get the chance. Lol. Yes, I said that out loud. This was the last message sent or received on Matt's phone on 11/12 of 2025. From 11:44 p.m. to 3:33 a.m., Matt's phone shows it was at his residence of Main Street, Genoa. Please note that between 11:28 p.m. on November 12th and 3:33 a.m. on November 13th, there was no activity on Matt's phone indicating actual usage. Like, dude, you left your phone at okay. You left your phone at home, so there's no activity on it. All right. But then you want the police to believe that you were busy texting while you were out there. Okay, then. We're still getting to that. November 13th of 2025 interview. I hope we get to see this at some point. During the November 13th of 2025 interview, investigator Mancuso had Matt walk him through the timeline regarding when he last saw AP and what their relationship was. Matt confirmed they share a child, OM, and that their relationship is on again, off again, having recently started back up last week. Matthew said that he went over to AP's apartment early on November 12th, around 11 o'clock, which he confirmed to be 11 a.m. Matthew said he then saw AP again at 4 or 5 p.m. Matthew said that AP again asked him if he wanted to come over again that night. Matthew said he did not respond because he was at home and he didn't know what was going on. Matthew again confirmed the first time he went over to AP's yesterday was at approximately 11 a.m. Matthew said that he stayed there until about 12:30 p.m. Matthew said that AP had an appointment and he had to get back for class. So while he was a professor taking a little lunch break or whatever breaks he was taking, he went to go visit his mistress. That was his cover life, it seems. Matthew said that he told AP if he got done early with class, he would come back over and watch TV while his wife was waiting at home for him. Just like, wow, what a douchebag. Okay, Matthew said that AP told him that was cool and he went over there from 4 until 5 p.m. Matthew said he then went home and they were messaging each other back and forth, and she said that he could come over again. This was around 8 or 9 p.m. Investigator Mancuso asked Matthew how long he was there the last time that he'd been there, and he said either 12 until 1 or 12 until 2. Yeah, almost right, Matthew. Almost right, but not quite. Okay. Investigator Mancuso also asked Matthew if anybody else was there when he was there hanging out with AP throughout yesterday and into early today, and he said no. He said it was just her and her animals. Matthew described the animals as being a dog and a cat, and as in the live stream, I'm sure many of you are going to ask, where's the cat? I have no idea. I don't know where the cat is. They found the dog deceased. No one's mentioned the cat. Investigator Mancuso asked Matthew if he thought he left between 1 and 2, and he said somewhere around there. I then asked where he went after he left, and he said he went down a few blocks because sometimes she texts him back. Matthew said he waited a little bit and then left and went home to Genoa. Right. So you've seen her 3 times a day, but that time you're gonna, at that time of night, while your wife is waiting for you at home, you're just gonna like just drive a couple of blocks down and just wait to see if she texts back so that you can go back there again. Okay, investigator Rose now asked Matthew if there was any truth to AP being pregnant, and he responded by saying that he and AP had a paternity test, and this test was done recently. Investigator Mancuso asked Matthew if he thought the kid was his, and he said yes, and he advised that they found out the kid was his. Investigator Mancuso then asked a clarifying question about how Matthew had started being intimate with AP, and now she was already pregnant, and he said this was back from the summer. You know, because he said we just started up again a week ago, and they're like, but then how is she 3 to 4 months pregnant? He's like, oh, that's from the summer. So really it was on again, off again at all times. Investigator Mancuso asked Matthew when he found out that AP was pregnant, and he said in August. Matthew said AP was 3 or 4 months pregnant. Matthew told investigator Rose now that AP had a gender reveal party, but he wasn't invited and he thought it was a boy. Investigator Mancuso asked Matthew when he found out AP was pregnant, and he found out when it was emailed to them. Matthew said that he thought this was in September. Matthew confirmed that he had been intimate with AP earlier in the summer, and there had been a pause from August until as recent as last week, when they were intimate again. Matthew said there was a point where they barely even texted each other, and they only talked when it was in reference to, I guess they mean OM, right? The 2-year-old. Further statement from ES. Investigator Mancuso invited ES, the defendant's wife, and asked EF if Matthew made any statements about ending the relationship with AP. And she said she was pretty sure that he wasn't going to do this again after, now they're saying OS. Was it OS? Wasn't it OM previously? But the 2-year-old, right, was born, right? Hold on. Just hold on one second. Maybe it is OS, which maybe would be his child with his wife. Okay, anyway. So ES talked about how Matthew had sworn to her he wasn't going to do this again, but he did. ES then said that Matthew probably came clean about having sex with AP again in September. I asked ES if Matthew has told her about the relationship with AP in the last couple of weeks, and she said no. After investigator Mancuso took pictures of the phone messages, he asked ES if she left her residence last night, and she stated she didn't. He then asked specifically if Matthew told her that he had left last night, and she said she didn't think so. ES said unless she dreamed it, she was sleeping. ES again said that she went to sleep around 12, got up at 4 to reset the speaker, and then said she didn't think so. He then asked if she confronted him last night, and she shook her head in a no manner. He then told ES that Matthew told me that she had confronted him last night when he got home, and she advised she didn't remember this. Investigator Mancuso asked ES if, when she spoke to Matthew on his work phone, if Matthew told her that there was a deceased person in AP's apartment, and she said no, he only said there was a fire. He asked ES if Matthew told her that he had been there last night, and she said no. ES said from what she knows, when he had cheated in the past, it was during the daytime, in summer, when she was at work. Investigator Mancuso also asked ES if this was news to her that Matt had left last night, and she said that it was. He then told ES that he was confused in my head because Matthew told me she had confronted him when he got home around 2 in the morning. ES then said, I wouldn't have been awake. Investigator Mancuso then informed ES to correct him if he was wrong. But if Matthew had been with a person that she despised and wanted to question him about this, she would remember this conversation. Would that be correct? She shook her head in a yes manner. He then asked ES if she remembered this conversation, and she shook her head in a no manner. ES said that she wouldn't have confronted Matthew in the night because AS would have been right there. Okay, AS, that would be their child. They either have 1 or 2 children, as in Matthew and his wife. And then he had the mistress, who he had a 2-year-old with, and she was 3 to 4 months pregnant, right? So ES said that AS has already heard too many of the arguments and she wouldn't want to traumatize him. ES said that she would wait until AS was at school. Investigator Mancuso asked ES if she smelled any accelerants on Matthew this morning, and she said no. ES said that Matthew had already taken a shower before he came upstairs. ES said that this is normal because he has to go to work. She confirmed with investigator Mancuso that she had no idea that Matthew had left last night, and she did not confront him. ES also confirmed the last time she was aware that Matthew and AP had intercourse was in July. ES said to her knowledge there had been nothing since July in reference to Matthew and AP. Well, he lied a lot, right? Inconsistencies in Matt Sierra's statement. Investigator Mancuso reviewed footage of the first interview that he conducted with Matt Sierra on November 13th of 2025 at 9:25 a.m. Damn, like first thing, he must have been like, whoa, they're already here, because he left the house on fire at like 3 a.m. And by 9:25, the police are like, what's up? We want to talk to you. He's like, wait, what? At 9:25:51, Matthew is asked to step out of the classroom by Investigator Rosenau and immediately starts talking about how Joe and Katina told him there was a fire that happened at AP's. This was without provocation. So you know why they're there. And you're a little anxious about it. And you're going to go ahead and say all that. They're like, we didn't even ask yet, dude. Okay. At 9:25:06, Matthew said he looked back in his messages and said that OS was at Linea's, so he knew that OS wasn't there. Okay, that would be the two. So OS is the 2-year-old that Matthew and the victim, Alexis, share, right? And so, remember, they said earlier that the 2-year-old was with a friend that night, so not at the apartment. Now, at 9:26:23, Matthew said Katina called him in the morning and Katina's friend saw fire coming out of the house and she hasn't heard anything since. Matthew said he's tried calling and texting. He hasn't gotten any responses. A review of messages between Matt and ES on ES's phone, ES is his wife, shows Matt sent ES a text at 8:05 a.m. A further review of Matt's phone records show that from at least 8:05 a.m. to 9:25 a.m., Matt never contacted the police department or dispatch to inquire about the fire and if this was true information, even though he had relayed to Investigator Mancuso in the second interview on November 14 that he loved AP so much. Oh, loved her so much. But you hear from other people, oh my word, there was a fire at her apartment. He's like, oh, okay. Not like, what do you mean? Is she okay? Oh my goodness, let me call the police. Anyway, so at 9:34:10, Investigator Mancuso asked Matt where he went after he left AP's apartment the last time. Matt said that he went down a few blocks because sometimes she texts me back. I think what he means is I was watching her apartment as it went up in flames, and when I was comfortable that this apartment was now on fire to cover up my crime, allegedly, then I drove away. Anyway, he's going with sometimes she texts me back. Matthew said that he waited a little bit and then left and went home. However, Investigator Rosenau's review of Matt's phone extraction confirmed that Matt's phone was at his house in Genoa, Wisconsin, the entire time of this last encounter. At 9:34:39, Investigator Rosenau asked Matthew if ES, his wife, knew where Matthew was last night, and he said, yeah. Investigator Rosenau also asked Matthew if ES was aware that he was intimate with AP, and he said, yeah. Guess what ES said, his wife? No. She didn't know. She didn't know he left the house, so he's saying, yep, okay. Matthew then starts crying. Matthew said he tries to tell his wife what happens. Investigator Mancuso then asked Matt if he talked with his wife last night when he got home, and he said, yeah, she confronted me, and I said I didn't want to talk about it. Matthew said he just went to bed. However, during an interview on November 13th of 2025 at 12:11 p.m., Investigator Mancuso asked ES if she talked to Matthew about leaving last night, and she said no. ES then said, I don't think so. ES then said no, because Wednesday's game night and they play games. ES, his wife, said that Matthew usually plays later after people get offline and she goes to bed. ES also said she thought that she reset their son's story speaker in his room at around 4 a.m. I asked ES if she saw Matt at the time, and she said no. I then asked ES when the last time that she talked to Matt was, and she said 6 a.m. when he texted good morning. ES said she thought she first saw Matthew at approximately 6:50 a.m. At 9:36:29, Matt stated that the thing with AP is new again. Within the past couple of weeks, he is then informed by Investigator Rosenau that he's going to hang on to his phone. And Matthew said he doesn't feel comfortable. Sorry, but he doesn't feel comfortable with that, okay? He hasn't yet tried to factory reset the phone. Investigator Rosenau then tells Matthew he's going to take his phone. Matthew then said okay and provided the password of 2121 when asked what his password was by Investigator Rosenau. At 9:40:55, Matt tells Investigator Investigator Rose now that his wife is aware of this summer when he was with AP, and also the most recent, which Matthew said was the past week. During his interview with ES, the wife, Investigator Mancuso asked how long the affair with AP had been going on. ES said, according to Matthew, she doesn't know if she can fully trust him. The first time they were together was maybe before OS was born. ES said that this is when she assumed that they conceived OS. I asked ES if Matthew told her that he had recently been with AP, and she shook her head in a yes manner. Okay. I asked ES when Matthew told her this, and she said it had to have been a couple of months ago because he had a relapse over the summer. ES said when Matthew was telling him that he had relapsed, this meant that he had sex with AP. I asked ES if Matthew told her that he left last night, and she said no, and said that she assumed he went to bed. At 9:41:20, Matt told Investigator Rose now that ES didn't know that he left, but when he got home, Matthew said ES asked him where he was, and he told her that he was at AP's. Investigator Rose now asked Matthew how that went, and he said that ES turned her back and walked away. Matthew said that ES seemed fine this morning, but he didn't know. Investigator Mancuso had asked ES, his wife, if AP, the victim, had been texting her, and she said no, and she said that Matthew had found as many of her profiles and phone numbers as he could and blocked all of them. ES said she made it a point to never see or communicate with AP because she had to spend a bunch of money on extra therapy that basically hypnotized her to not think about Matthew and AP having sex. ES said that she would be pretty sure if she saw AP in person, all that would go down the crapper. At 9:45:20, Matt stated the last time that he was at AP, he was there for maybe an hour or an hour and a half. Matthew said after he left the house, he pulled over and waited 10 to 15 minutes to see if she would text me back. I asked Matthew if AP texted him to come back, and he said she didn't. Matthew said that he just went home after that. However, according to Matt's cell phone data, Matt never had his cell phone on his person when he was in La Crosse the last time. At 9:58:16, Investigator Mancuso asked Matthew if ES knew that AP was pregnant, and he said, yeah, I told her when we found out. I don't think so. Matthew couldn't remember the exact date. I asked Matthew what ES's reaction was, and he didn't say anything. I asked Matthew if ES wanted a divorce, and she said she doesn't. Matthew then raised his hand in an I don't know type gesture. Matthew said that he and ES have been working on things for a long time, and things were getting better. Yeah, you were pretending things were getting better, because clearly you were still living your double life, your cheating ass life behind your wife's back, right? However, Investigator Mancuso had again asked ES if she recalled having a conversation with Matthew, asking him if he had left in the middle of the night, and she said she didn't think so, and she was pretty sure she was sleeping. I asked ES if she had any knowledge that Matthew left in the middle of the night last night, and she said no. She said she didn't remember Matthew leaving between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. this morning. ES told me that the last time that Matthew had relapsed was in July. I asked ES if AP was pregnant, and she said she didn't think so. ES said she's pretty sure he learned after the first time to wrap it up. ES said she's aware that they used birth control. I asked ES if she was aware that AP was pregnant, and she said no. ES then said, God, I hope not. Why is this happening to me? F. At 10:56, Investigator Rose now asked Matt for further clarification of what happened once he left AP's apartment for the final time. Matt said that he took the road that leads to Quick Trip. So I stopped there and I waited like 10-15 minutes to see if she had messaged me to come back, and she didn't message me, so I just left. Investigator Rose now asked Matthew why he would do that. And he said sometimes she does that. So the investigator's like, why on earth would you do that, bro? Had you not been there 3 times a day? Aren't you supposed to be at home? It's 2 a.m, dude. And he's like, what? Sometimes she does that. Again, according to Investigator Rosenau's review of Matt Sierra's phone extraction, it was confirmed that Matt's phone was in Genoa during the entire time frame that he was in La Crosse at AP's apartment. Matt never had his phone that he uses to communicate with AP when he was in La Crosse the last time that he was observed at her apartment. Preliminary autopsy results Investigator Reed states that an autopsy of AP was performed by Dr. Michelle Strom and her staff at the Southeast Minnesota Regional Medical Examiner's Office or Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. During the autopsy, Dr. Strom noticed the absence of soot in AP's mouth, throat, and lungs. Additionally, a preliminary test of Pickett's blood indicated very low levels of carbon monoxide. Based on the absence of soot coupled with very low levels of carbon monoxide in AP's blood, Dr. Strom concluded that AP was deceased prior to the fire. Dr. Strom also identified a deceased fetus in AP's uterus. Shame. Dr. Strom stated, "It will be difficult to determine a cause of death because of the condition of the body." However, she stated there were no obvious signs of injury, although the skin of the body was burnt off in most sections of the body. There were no signs of gunshots or stab wounds or similar types of injuries to the internal organs. There were no signs of internal bleeding. There were no cut marks on the skin by the wrists or arms or neck. Dr. Strom said suffocation or strangulation was a possibility, and that just because of the absence of injuries, it doesn't mean it couldn't have taken place. She said there was no way to know if she was suffocated or not, and she wouldn't be able to confirm whether or not AP was suffocated. Additionally, blood toxicology results indicated no illicit substances in her system. Now, we've watched a couple of trials like this, right? Remember the Matthew Paul trial? They were not able to determine the cause of the victim's death, and yet he was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. In the Brian Walsh trial, they were not able to find Anna Walsh's body, but they were able to convict him and he was sentenced to life without parole. So a lot of circumstantial evidence can still secure a conviction if the person is in fact guilty, which the state would have to prove. So this isn't, of course not the end of the case. It's just based on the original criminal complaint and the judge saying, well, if you don't have the final autopsy report or a report from the fire department, you've got 72 hours to file a new one. It seems like they got a bit more information, of course, the autopsy, the fire department, but they still don't know exactly how the victim died in this case. They're saying suffocation or strangulation is a possibility. And they don't know exactly how or where the fire was started besides being in the victim's bedroom, right? So those are some challenges that the state will face in this trial. So it says, Investigator Rosner review of text messages between AP's older phone number and Matthew. This review is limited from August 1st of 2025 to November 13th of 2025. August 4th of 2025. Matthew rented a hotel room at Stony Creek and stayed in room 306. AP messaged him at 5:17 p.m., advising she was 11 minutes out from the hotel and asked where she should park. He replied telling her to park by his car, and it was room 306. AP does appear to have been there, and then an argument happened to her, AP taking a phone call. AP ended up leaving the hotel room sometime after 6:30 p.m. on the state. Okay, so she messaged him at 5:17. Said she was 11 minutes out, so 5:28, and by 6:30 she was already leaving. Now these are a little blurry. Okay, so this is AKP's phone. Okay, so the victim's phone, it says number 3. Also, feeling some type of way that you've gotten my face and that I thought you were going to hit me. I did flinch, not intentionally, but I definitely noticed it. And just me noticing it, but I'll get over it, hopefully, eventually soon. This says owner, which I would assume would be the defendant, right? It said, I did have him this Friday to next Thursday. I did get in your face, but it was to talk without being loud. And I do see now how that could seem. I'm sorry. All right. And this one says, yeah, well, you were yelling at me and getting in my ear and my face. And then when I said something, you moved really fast, and I hate that, even though you were going to hit me, but yeah, shit happens, I guess. It appears on August 6th of 2025, AP told Matthew that they were officially done. The two continued to argue back and forth about the relationship. It's clear it's a very toxic relationship where Matthew clearly shows signs of manipulation and needing to be in power and control over what AP does, who she talks to, and when. Oh, wow. Okay. On August 15th of 2025, Matthew called AP. Their conversation was over 13 minutes in length. I suspect this is when AP told Matthew she could be pregnant and or took a pregnancy test that was positive. The next several messages discuss this further. AP, I'm not going to deal with your attitude about it. And he says, okay, I'll calm down a bit, I'm sorry, but I can't have another kid. She says, can't or don't want to, because what? And he says, I can't have another kid. I can't go through all of this again. Here's an image that was sent. He says, I barely kept my life together after and I told you I'm not having another kid. And she says, yeah, it's the pregnancy test. So I guess that's what the picture was, right? And he says, tests? Multiple? I can't have another kid, Alexis. I'm sorry. And she says, and that sucks, Matt, but I had literally 2 hours to think about it while you were sitting there ignoring me. It's not that you can't have another kid, it's because you don't want to have another kid. Oh, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to stress me into a miscarriage, LMAO, which is laughing my ass off, right? She says, how about this? If you want the baby gone so bad, how about you drive all the way out here and physically do it if it means that much to you? Then she said, sorry, that was out of pocket. Not really. I'm not really sorry. Let's see if you can live with yourself. Then actually you probably could. So let me shut up, she says. Because it's all about you and your family. Can't forget about your family, right? And then he says, I'm going to do what I feel I need to do. You aren't going to change your mind, it seems, and neither am I. Alexis then says, and exactly what are you going to do? Spike my drink, lol, with a plan B? I'll remember not to drink anything that you give me. And she says, well, tell me, what are you going to do? Because that sounds like a threat. You keep saying that if I'm not going to change my mind, you know what you need to do. What are you going to do, Matt? I'd really love to know. Spike my drink with plan B. Don't know what else is there. After several additional messages shared, AP sent the following. I've thought about it a lot, and I'll terminate the pregnancy. Like 100% serious, if you can do me one favor. I want you to come to my house, get on your knees, put your hands together like you're begging. And I want it to be recorded too. Put a recorder right in your face, and I want you to say these words, a message for their son. Oh, when he gets older, I can show it to him. You're going to say, I'm sorry that I love my family more than I love you. And I'm a piece of for ruining your mother's life. And I'm sorry that I didn't want you in this world in the first place. And if I had it my way, I would have kept you a secret to protect my other family. Then I want you to turn to me and away from the camera and say, I am a narcissist and I will never change. I don't deserve anything good, and that's it. And then you can make the appointment. Hell, you can even take me to the appointment. Also add, I'm sorry for forcing your mom to kill your baby sister for the sake of my own needs and the family I loved more. Then that should do it. Not asking for money, although you would have to pay for the termination of the pregnancy, but just a few words. That's it. Also, she's saying, I'm sorry for forcing your mom to kill your baby sister. Remember, she had the gender reveal party, so I think she knew that she was going to have a baby girl. He said he thought it was a son, but like, he would have known. I mean, why? Dude, does it feel better to lie about it? You're accused of murdering your mistress, Alexis, and your unborn child. It doesn't make it any better whether it's a boy or girl. I just wonder if he feels like extra guilt if it's like a girl, because why would he lie about that? He wasn't invited to the gender reveal party, but he saw things on email and he knew there was the party happening, so okay. Now Alexis's phone says, no deal then. Well, I gave you a chance to abandon yet another family. That's on you. The deal will only last for 24 hours. He said, you do what you feel you need to, and I'll do what I feel I need to. Simple as that. And she says, so no more begging like a little puppy dog, because it was effing sad. Almost made me feel bad for you. You don't need to make that video because I got enough messages. I don't know why I ever effed with you. You're not even that effing attractive. And you're slow as they effing come. I don't think I've ever hated someone so much in my life. Investigator Rosner also found that in the Monroe case, there was a hearing on 10/13/25 where AP, the 13th of October. Yeah, okay, so just a month prior to the murder and the fire. Okay, where AP asked for mediation to avoid contact with Matthew Sierra. AP also filed a letter with the court containing many of the same text messages noted in this complaint. AP ended the letter with this statement. Most importantly, I want what is best for OM. At the same time, I want to make it clear that my decision to continue this pregnancy is mine, and I should not be pressured, persuaded, or treated cruelly for making that choice. I want OM to have both parents involved in his life, but I also need my personal decisions respected. Thank you, Your Honor, for your time and consideration. My goal is to create a stable, cooperative, and healthy environment for my son. Respectfully, AP, mother of OM. And that is the end of this new criminal complaint, which the judge was happy with enough to proceed with the case. The judge said, okay, this is sufficient now for probable cause listed in this criminal complaint to go forward. So Matthew Sierra is in jail on a $1 million cash bond, and I will keep you posted on when he will next be in court and what happens from here. As we know, these things take time. Oftentimes to get to trial, it will take time. So we'll have to just see what happens next and when there's a next hearing and where we go from here. Hopefully, so this is what in Wisconsin. And we've covered quite a few cases that happen in Wisconsin. And so hopefully this trial will be live streamed and hopefully we can watch it together whenever it does happen. Thank you so much if you made it to the end, let me know in the comments as well. I always like it when you guys let me know. Of course I make it to the end. I listen to the whole thing. Thank you so much. Not everybody does, okay? So I really, really appreciate it. Leave your comments below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Whether it would be, let's say, do you think the state has a good chance of prosecuting this case? Or do you think it's risky? What do you think about this new information that they put in this criminal complaint? In my personal opinion, I feel like the first one, compared to this one, the first one was fine. It's enough. I think they had enough to proceed, but the judge wasn't happy. So, okay, there's a lot more information here. Did it convince you a little more that he could be the guy that murdered his pregnant mistress and set her house on fire, which also killed her dog, or not? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Again, if you missed part 1 and you want to compare the criminal complaints, go and watch it. I've linked it for you in the pinned comments, which is in the comment section. I always pin the comment I make for you, which is timestamps and updates and things like that. And then also, so go check that out, compare them if you want to, and it's also in the description box for you. Okay, well, thank you so much. In the meantime, stay safe. Today is December 30th of 2025. So I don't know when you're watching this, but I just want to wish you a very happy new year. I hope that 2026 is really fantastic for you. And remember, as I always say, stay safe.